Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm your host, Daniel Davis. Today we have a wonderful guest joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today, and she is a wonderful actress and also the author of more than 17 books, including New York Times bestsellers such as Ageless, Keeping Secrets, Eat Great, Lose Weight, Get Skinny on Fabulous Foods, and one of my favorite titles is Eat, Cheat, and Melt the Fat Away. And today she's going to be talking with us about her new book simply titled Breakthrough, 8 Steps to Wellness. And if you're not going to listen to your friends or your family, why not listen to a celebrity? And she's done extensive work to put this book together, and I think you're going to be very in tune with what she has to say when it comes time to taking to your health. And joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is Suzanne Summers. And Suzanne, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Oh, it is my pleasure, and what a perfect show for me, Beyond 50. I'm happily Beyond 50. It's never been this good.
Oh, I'll bet. Now, what I like, too, is how you start your book off, and I don't think that in the many years that we've been doing our show, about 5 years now, that most people ever think about what their lives will be like when they're 90, and you actually sort of sketch that out to say, this is my day when I'm like 95 years old or something like that.
Yes.
And you talk about your husband. Now, why is it that people never have a vision like that for themselves, do you think?
I think that that we're not paying attention right now to the present model of aging. Because if you do, if you look what's happening to our seniors, and even people my age and my husband's age in their 60s and 70s, the picture is not one that you want. We have an epidemic of Alzheimer's, of cancer, of heart disease. In fact, right now, women in the United States can expect the last 8 years of their lives to be that of disability, meaning tubes up the nose, nursing homes, Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease, whatever. And so I took a look at that, and then I took a look around me, and I thought, nobody's well. And if we're not well now, what can we expect down the road? And it's important to have vision about the lifespan because we're no longer dying at after our reproductive years. At the turn of the century, we died at 45, then they kept us alive to 55, then 65. Now, with technology, we will stay alive, barring some kind of car accident, to 90, 100, they're saying even 120, which is great. But what if you don't have quality of life? What if you don't have a brain? What if you don't have bones that hold you up? What if you don't have any energy? What if you're in a nursing home? What if you're all drugged into a stupor? And so that's what I wanted to look at in Breakthrough, of what to do right now so that that doesn't have to be the model of your present aging.
Now, it's interesting, Suzanne, what you talk about there about our model of aging, and that when we take a look at how we're seeing it, we say to ourselves as we're young, we don't want to be that. What's interesting about our show is that as we see people who read the title, Should We Be at a Trade Show, or we talk about what it is, they get it right away, but then the image of a person who's 50 years old is sort of displaced as though they're senior citizens, and we're saying, no, we're actually more toward the 40 to 60-year-old crowd who are at that turning point that if they don't change habits could possibly look like the model that you're talking about.
Right.
And so therefore we bring people such as yourself on our program to show that there are just wonderful choices out there, but what you need to be armed with is the right information. Now, in your book, you have several doctors that you worked with to basically answer in a holistic way the many questions that maybe a lot of us just aren't aware of.
Yes, and there are 20 doctors in Breakthrough, and that has been the model of my last several books, of interviewing, using my celebrity to get to the best and brightest minds. And I've heard about these doctors and interacted with them because I actually am often a keynote speaker at medical conventions. Doctors who have stepped back and look at the way we are practicing medicine right now and pronouncing it outdated, that we are not taking into account with the present model of medicine that we are under the greatest environmental assault in the history of mankind. We've never experienced anything like this. Our livers are groaning. It can't take it. We were never meant to process these many chemicals. Thus, the epidemic of Alzheimer's, and now in younger and younger people. And as I said in the book, if you're 35, get ready. You've got to start thinking about it now. The other thing that's going on is the overuse of pharmaceutical drugs to a degree that has never before happened in mankind. And it happened when pharmaceutical companies were allowed to advertise. And all of a sudden, we sit home and we're a nation of people who watch television, And every other ad is pharmaceutical, and it describes something where if you listen to it, you think, well, I have that. And now there's a drug for every single ailment. The toxic buildup of the chemicals and the toxic buildup of the drugs are making us severely ill. For instance, there are some places where pharmaceuticals are a godsend and absolutely necessary, particularly with pain, infection, mental illness, AIDS, things outside my scope. Okay, absolutely. I don't want to live in a world without pharmaceuticals. And I have a girlfriend whose daughter graduated from Vassar, summa cum laude, and schizophrenia runs through their family. And 2 years after graduation, and she was also a prima ballerina. I mean, this was a super achieving person. 2 years after graduation, the strain of schizophrenia in their family hit her, and her life has never been the same. And so my girlfriend and I were talking, and she said, my daughter has to have these drugs. I said, absolutely. She said, without these drugs, she cannot live. She said, but what I've noticed over the 20 years that she's been on these drugs is the cognitive decline. She said, here my daughter was one of the most intelligent people I've ever known in my life, and she's not thinking right anymore. I said, that is a result of what drugs do. And so when we take drugs for restless legs, or we take drugs for sexuality, Viagra, something like that. When we take allergy medicine, when all these doctors are telling me women who are plagued with allergies at midlife, it is because of the depletion of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. When you restore that to perfect optimal levels, the watery eyes, the itchy eyes, the constant allergies go away. But instead, the way our present model treats it is with Claritin or some other kind of drug. Or acid reflux. Everybody's got acid reflux, and they're clearing their throat, and they've got heartburn and bloated and gas and constipation. There are about 5 drugs right there for each one of those situations where I interviewed Dr. Jonathan Wright, an incredible doctor in Seattle, the father of bioidentical hormones, which I'll explain. First doctor ever in this country to write a prescription 23 years ago for natural hormones and replacing what has been lost in the aging process. And he told me, he said, what happens as we hit 40, 45, because it seems like our bodies were designed to live perfectly to 40, 45. And if you think about it, those are the reproductive years. And if you think about it from a biological standpoint, yeah, we're here to perpetuate the species. So once we no longer are hormonally balanced, which signals to the brain that we can't make babies anymore, you kind of see that the brain's job is to kind of get rid of us and give us ailments that get rid of these so we
all
make
of a sudden
more.
You're thinking, I'm aching, what did I do? And you realize, well, I just woke up from a nap.
Right, exactly. Because the brain's job is to make room for the young, healthy, reproductive ones to keep the species going.
It's amazing how focused we are in those years, too, when it comes to reproduction.
Exactly. So what he explained to me about all the middle-age, acid reflux, heartburn, bloating, gas, constipation, macular degeneration, it stems from a lack of hydrochloric acid. We make hydrochloric acid in our gut up until about age 40, 45. Then that production ceases or slows way down. So now we're not digesting properly because hydrochloric acid is what digests, and that's what enables the nutrients to get out into the body and do its work. But what people do, because of a lack of understanding, is they go and take an antacid, which is exactly the opposite of what they need. Here they need more acid, and they're taking some over-the-counter drug to take away even more acid. So the problem never gets better. And I was so surprised to find that macular degeneration starts in the gut, because my mother was blind the last 20 years of her life and had 2% fuzzy peripheral vision, so technically, for all intents and purposes, blind. And when I think back on her, she had every sign of a lack of hydrochloric acid. She was always saying, oh, I'm so bloated. Oh, I can't hold my stomach in. Oh, I'm so constipated. I have such terrible gas. Oh, I have heartburn. She was always clearing her throat. And I dedicated this book to her. I said, if we knew then what we know now, you might still be with us, that we might have been able to save her eyesight if they had known then what these doctors and what Dr. Wright is doing. He said, when I have somebody with macular degeneration, I put them on hydrochloric acid. He said, we either stop the decline or we reverse it.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing he told me, these are all aging things. He said, when people come to me with age-related hearing loss, he said, I do a hormone panel on them, and inevitably they are always low in the hormone aldosterone. When I replace the aldosterone to optimal levels, their hearing comes back. He said, including a 93-year-old man, we brought his hearing back in 1 year by 91 decibels. So these are non-drug approaches to living this long life. And if we can keep the chemicals to a minimum, because there's no way to get rid of them completely, but keep them to a minimum, we have a better shot at not following the present template of people who can't remember, people who don't remember a moment ago or a whole lifetime. I always felt so bad about President Reagan, this brilliant man who, in his end years, never even knew he was president of the United States. That is tragic. Right.
I know, Suzanne, it's interesting as you talk about bioidentical hormone replacement, is that many times we've had experts just like that on our program to talk about this, and it was funny because it was only in the last 2 years that I myself had actually heard about this, if you will, and I know that it's been out there for a while, but then you realize all the information and where we get it from either is inaccurate or it's just not good enough, or it tends to move toward an area where they're convincing you to buy something, such as you were talking about the ads on television for a pill that takes care of something that you think you have. And what's really interesting is that at the same time you realize that you're beginning to uncover another problem within our healthcare system, and that is the fact that we're in such a litigious society that doctors try to do the best they can to keep you alive, but that just isn't good enough, and it really isn't entirely, totally their fault, but you got to take a look at the patient, for instance, and what they're doing in their lifestyle, and how much do you go out to get that information. Now, in your book, how did you decide on the particular doctors that you chose? Because one thing that really rings clear in the book is they all seem to be Mavericks.
Yes. Fearless Mavericks. But I made sure they actually had to qualify to be in this book. Highly credentialed, Harvard, twin majors at Harvard, Columbia, Stanford. I went to the best and brightest. But in the anti-aging world, when I go to these conferences, you hear about the real Mavericks, the people who don't care about being ostracized from their peers and criticized, and who just feel that it is wrong to give their patients a drug for every ailment. And I asked one of my doctors, Dr. Howard Leibowitz, I said, how often do you write a pharmaceutical prescription? And he had to think about it. He said, I guess maybe 1 out of 1,000. Out of 1,000? Now here's what's wrong. This is not the patient, and these are not the patients, and this is not the doctor that the pharmaceutical companies want. Because, say, for instance, when we women start our hormonal decline, as I did, and maybe we're lucky that I had the worst menopause that I've heard of. I think because of the stress of my life and the stress of my childhood, which I've written books about, and stress blunts hormone production. I started losing hormones without realizing it during my Three's Company years. And I had difficulty controlling my moods with all the stress, and I had great difficulty.
And you were in your 20s then, right?
I was 27.
Okay.
And I was experiencing it then. Now I didn't know it, and nobody knew it. I didn't sleep well. I'd be paddling around the house at night. My sex drive was very, very low. I had skin rashes. I was just always dealing with things that I didn't understand where they came from, and nobody else did. But then when I reached, my mid to late 30s, it really became very, very bad, and I went from doctor to doctor to doctor. It took me 3 years. And during those 3 years, I didn't sleep at all, and I mean, I'd go to bed so exhausted, so tired. I'd sleep for 15 minutes and wake up soaking wet, be awake for 3 hours, then fall asleep again, exhausted for 15 minutes, and the same thing would happen throughout the night, and maybe I'd get 2 hours. A lucky night would be 3 hours a night. Then you're moody during the day. Nobody understands you. You don't understand you. You gain weight for no reason because, if you're not sleeping, that's a big factor because your insulin never has a chance to go down, so you gain weight. Finally, after 3 years of going from doctor to doctor to doctor and being offered antidepressants like Prozac, sleeping pills, anti-anxiety, pain and joint killers, a myriad of drugs, all of which I said, no, I don't want to be. I come from alcoholism. I don't want to take drugs. It's against my beliefs about myself unless I really have to. I finally found a doctor who took a blood test, and she said, an endocrinologist, she said, you poor thing. And I said, why? She said, you must feel terrible. I said, I do.
What gave you that idea? I just happened to be in front of you?
Right. She said, your estrogen is at 0. She said,
oh, my goodness.
She said, I don't know how you're making it. I said, I don't know how I'm making it. I said, I really have days where I think, as a happy person, happily married, with a great family and children, that I don't know if I can get through another day feeling like this. She said, I'm going to start you on bioidentical hormones, biologically identical to the human hormone, an exact replica of what our bodies make, made from soy, wild yam, and other plant extracts, synthesized in a lab to exactly replicate what our bodies make. You can't get a patent on it because they haven't changed or altered the molecular structure. So now we know it's natural and it's pure. She said, I'm going to start you off slow. I said, why? She said, I can't give you everything you need because it took a long time for you to drain out. We've got to bring you up slowly. I said, why? She said, you'll literally go crazy. You can't play around with hormones.
What's funny about your philosophy there is the idea that a lot of us in society, if we feel ailed, we always seem to think more is better, and it's actually just the opposite of that.
Right, more and now is what I want.
Exactly.
Anyway, she started me on a low dose. Within 2 weeks, I was feeling better. I was calming down. The body rashes were going away. I was sleeping a little better. I still didn't have a sex drive. It took me a full year, but with every 2-week increment, we'd up it a little bit and up it a little bit and up it a little bit till we finally reached what I call the sweet spot, where I started sleeping 8 and 9 hours a night when my libido came back, maybe in a way that it never had been. I couldn't believe it, and my weight went away, and my true nature, my upbeat, happy nature returned, and I never looked back. At that time, when I started on bioidentical hormones, we did a bone density test. I had begun losing bone. Today, 15, 16 years later of being on these, I have no bone loss. So when you replace estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, it starts the osteoclast process of building and burrowing, which is what makes bone. So I reactivated. So I didn't need Fosamax. Fosamax, which most people my age are on, stops you from losing any more bone, but the bone you've lost is the bone you've lost. So if you don't get on this right away, you've got powdery bones, and you've just got to be careful you don't fall. I recently was on Nightline, and I wanted to show them that at 62, I do a complete handstand in my yoga practice because my bones are strong enough to lift me by my wrists and hands completely straight up in the ground. And I did it just to show the possibilities. And when you are my age, and my husband, who's 10 years older than I, who's also on hormone replacement, and you are hormonally balanced, and you are sleeping, and you have a healthy libido, and you have vitality and energy, and you have less wrinkling when you have hormones like you were when you were young, and you don't gain the weight because your metabolism is working right. You couple that with wisdom and perspective, and I'm going to tell you, this is the best my life has ever been. I look forward to each coming year. I see myself getting to that 90, 100, 120 mark and being healthy and having my brain intact because I've chosen to avoid chemicals in my food and in my household products, and I don't take over-the-counter drugs, and I only would take a pharmaceutical if I absolutely had to. And these are things people say, well, I can't afford this kind of medicine. I go, yes, you can.
Actually, preventative medicine is a lot more affordable than the alternative by a long shot.
Totally. And now with everybody's on statins at our ages, and I did a whole chapter in Breakthrough that if you're on statins, do yourself a favor and just read that chapter so that you can see what statins like Lipitor and Pravachol and Mevacor, what they do to you. And I show you what these doctors have told me as natural alternatives to lowering cholesterol, and see if maybe you might want to switch over. Because statins do three major things. You need cholesterol to make neurons in your brain, and you need cholesterol to make neurons in your gut. It's called the second brain. And testosterone is made from cholesterol. So if you're taking a drug that inhibits your body to make any more cholesterol, you're now robbing your brain's ability to replicate. You are now robbing your gut's ability to replicate and keep itself healthy. And you are now robbing your body's ability to make one of your most important hormones, which is testosterone, men and women, which keeps your bones strong, which keeps your muscles strong, keeps your heart strong. So people who are on statins get transient global amnesia, losing whole blocks of time. They are very forgetful, can't remember a moment ago. They get muscle wasting, so the shoulders start sloping and the belly sticks out because now the spine is collapsing, which pushes that belly out. The little particles of muscle that break off from the muscle wasting caused by the statin eventually build up in the kidney, and they get kidney failure and kidney backup. But instead, there's over-the-counter niacin. One of the doctors recommended 500 milligrams twice a day. And there are two kinds. There's time release. You don't want that. You will flush and burn and turn red, and it's uncomfortable. You want plain. There's one company called Designs for Health, which you can look in the back of my book Breakthrough, that makes something called Niacin Supreme, which comes in 500 milligram tablets. I'm not involved with this company. I just think they're a quality company. And this niacin in studies has been shown to actually flush out and reverse arterial plaque. No statin can make that claim. So the problem we're experiencing is that the deep pockets of pharmaceutical companies, and I'm not trying to demonize them, I'm just trying to make us, we the lay people, we the patients, aware that don't take it unless there's no other course. If they have such deep pockets so they can advertise every other page in a magazine, every other ad on a television show. Whenever I'm on a television show, they edit me so that I come off looking like either a health freak or ignorant.
Yeah, we're well aware of what they do on the other side, especially on the other side. Yeah.
Because if we all find out that we can get rid of our plaque in our arteries through niacin, and we can thin our blood through a natural blood thinner that you can get at a health food store called nattokinase, and that if we really still can't get rid of the bad cholesterol, we can get a natural supplement called red yeast rice, which is what, by the way, Lipitor is made from. But then, of course, to get a patent, they altered the molecular structure and turned it into a drug and made it expensive. And the other thing that I found out from these doctors writing Breakthrough, you can see I'm kind of passionate, but it's exciting. Information is empowering.
Well, it is, because especially when you get good, solid information, because then you're able to ask better questions of your doctor and even question whether you even have the right doctor. So you can, because in the end, as I always usually say as I do talks like this, is that in the end, your doctor doesn't have to live with your health.
Yeah. And
when you know that, it changes the game.
I always say, when I lecture, I always say, no one is going to care as much about your health as you, and no one is going to be as sorry as you if you don't have it. And no one ever appreciates good health until they lose it. So these are ways to not ever get to that end point. Now, the one other thing I want to say about cholesterol, because there's such misnomers about cholesterol, and every doctor made this point. There are two kinds of oils that we consume. There's omega-3 and omega-6. Omega-3 is your friend. Omega-3, you can get it in eggs, you can get it in flax oil, you can get it in olive oil, coconut oil, which I had never cooked with, but it doesn't oxidize at high heat, and doing vegetables in coconut oil is divine.
Oh, wow.
And eat salmon, because it's loaded with omega-3s, and sardines if you like them. Those are the good oils. And the reason we want good oils is because of the membrane around every cell in our body needs to be elastic, and that membrane is made from omega-3 oil so that hydration and oxygenation can flow in and out. That's life. water and air, water and air. That's what our cells need to breathe and to breathe the life into us. Omega-6 oils are what I always thought were heart-healthy oils, and they're sold to us this way. Omega-6 are corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil, vegetable oil, and canola oil. These have all been sold to us as heart-healthy. I said, why? Explain to me why these are bad for us. These oils oxidize your cholesterol and create those high numbers of the bad cholesterol, LDL. If you just eliminate those bad oils and switch over to omega-3 oils, your LDL will go low. And if at that point they still haven't gone low enough because you've so overused them in your life, that's when you would add in the red yeast rice. And on a regular basis, they say take the niacin to constantly keep the plaque flowing. The other thing that the harm that is caused by these bad oils of creating the bad LDL is the membrane that omega-6 oils creates around each cell in our body is hard, like an eggshell. Mm-hmm. So air and hydration and oxygenation cannot go through. There's no life. What it does, when the chemicals come into our bodies, which are coming in constantly from in our rugs, in our phone lines, in our household cleaners, and in packaged foods, those free radicals come in and they crack this membrane that has been made with bad oils, and then that cell malfunctions. You get enough of these malfunctioning cells, and you get cancer, or you get one of the autoimmune diseases, MS, fibromyalgia, or lupus. So when you say to someone, it's what we're eating, our diet is that important, it falls on deaf ears. You hear, yeah, but I don't want to give up my Krispy Kreme donuts, and I don't want to give up my Doritos, or my NutraSweet, or my Sweet and Low. By the way, all those things I just mentioned are 40% what they call excitotoxins. These are toxins, glutamates, that kill brain cells. If you understand that you make a few simple changes, which isn't expensive, in your diet, that you can lower your cholesterol, that you can keep your cells healthy with oxygen and hydration, that you can keep your brain healthy by not killing it with diet sodas. Oh, my God, diet sodas. Oh, my God.
See, that's the complexity, folks, for this book to understand, is there's so much that you want to cover. And unfortunately, we have so little time because I do know that you have to go. But the point is that's what makes it exciting, and how you wrote the book, too, just for the listeners out there. It's an interview format, so it's as you're having a conversation with the doctor, as the doctor's explaining, the things that he's explaining. And it's interesting because we've covered the gamut many times as holistically as we believe possible. And sometimes we go, well, that sounds nice. But then if I say, well, did you know Suzanne Summers said that? Oh, really? And all of a sudden they want to listen. I think, well, whatever it takes for you to start listening, I think.
Well, because I'm us.
Mm-hmm.
One television show I was on, I was attacked, as I always am. I'm used to it. I can take it.
Now, why do they attack you? What do you think their motivation is, just out of curiosity?
Well, a lot of it is because their sponsor might be a pharmaceutical company.
Right.
As in my most recent appearance on Nightline, and last year on 2020. I was just, on 2020, they asked, what are you up to? I said, well, one of the things that I'm really interested in, and I'm about to go down to San Diego to Dr. Ron Rothenberg's office to have my stem cells collected and banked. Why? Well, because now there's a company called NeoStem, that I interviewed that doctor in this book, too, so you can find out about it, who has developed the technology, and not even our presidential candidates know this information yet, to extract fetal stem cells from our adult bone marrow. We have them still in us. So the whole issue of using unborn fetuses is now moot. We don't need it. We don't even need to go there. So they said, why do you want to bank your stem cells? I said, well, if ever I have congenital heart failure or valve problems, which I doubt I'll have, but if I do, right now, if you have your own stem cells banked, they can inject into your heart and regrow your heart right now. I talked to a young man, a 40-year-old man, who was essentially given his walking papers, who now plays football with his son. He regrew his heart. I talked to another gentleman who regrew his valves. They are regrowing hips, they're regrowing knees, they're regrowing skin and certain organs. In the future, they'll be regrowing lungs, limbs, eyes, teeth, it's incredible. This is where it's going, and these are non-drug. This is, a man who drove me to the Larry King show recently. I said, "How you doing, Frank?" He said, "Oh, I didn't have such a good summer." "Why, Frank?" He said, "Oh, I had a quadruple bypass." "Wow, that must have been terrible." He said it was. I said, "What did that cost you, Frank?" He said, "Oh, my bill was about $250,000. And I thought, with stem cells, it's a fraction, a small fraction, to inject your stem cells back into your heart and regrow your heart. So again, this information has a tough time rising up because, well, look at all the money that will be lost for surgery for heart bypass when you can just grow it. So on Nightline, they show me having my stem cells collected, and it looks a little science fiction-y because it's like giving blood. You've got needles in both arms, and they kept the camera would go up to the blood plasma hanging from the bag on the IV, and then it'd go back to my arms. And then another time they came with me to my anti-aging doctor, and after a trip, when I've been in airplanes and my stress level gets high, and I was on a tour, and I'm not eating the kind of food, don't have access to it, I go to him to get an intravenous vitamin C drip to build up my body, and sometimes he adds glutathione in it. No drug. Well, when they showed they showed this on Nightline, but never mentioned what I was doing. So I looked like some kind of health freak getting monkey gland injections or cadaver blood or something like that.
Like Michael Jackson in the hyperbolic chamber.
Exactly, and so I thought that is the problem. But I'm telling you, for anyone listening to your program, the possibilities now of living a non-drug, healthy life with a brain and bones and energy, and imagine living as long as I, did that hypothetical at the beginning of the book of 2041. I fully expect, barring some kind of unforeseen, that will be my life when I'm 94. And it excites me to think I'll be here and watch my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, probably great-great-grandchildren, and not be the senile old great-great-great-great-grandmother they shove in the corner. I will be of it. That's what I expect. That's what I think we can all expect. But you have to make the changes now. You can't go on eating chemicals, and you can't go on just accepting every pharmaceutical your doctor gives you. You've got to question, why do I need this? Is there a natural alternative? And my book will give you those natural alternatives.
And the other thing to consider, too, Suzanne, is as anthropologist author Wade Davis would say, we would then begin growing a healthier old forest.
Yeah.
And with that wisdom comes back our civilization and our culture, and in that, a lot more encouragement about what it is to age and what you have to contribute to society through your experience, other than just being somebody who's wasting away. And that's why books like yours and people like the doctors you interviewed and the many others that I'm sure that are out there that we just don't know who they are, but they're out there advocating and they're fighting for the right way to live and to be healthy. And it's just wonderful that you've taken your celebrity, for instance, and you've done such powerful work to give back to people and say, here, trust me, you can be this way. It doesn't have to be the way you think it is, and for that I applaud you.
Well, it's a privilege, and it's a privilege to use my celebrity this way, and it also helps me. I agree with what you just said. I and the people who've embraced this are productive members of society. We are not a drain on society. I don't need any insurance company to take care of me or the government to take care of me. I'm fine. I can work. I can take care of myself. I swear, if I had stayed on the path that I was on, where my estrogen was at 0, I would not be a productive member of society right now. I'd already my lights would be going out. Because the way I was feeling in my 30s, imagine if that had continued into my 60s. So for me, this was actually life-saving and brain-saving. And here I am. I've got the beginnings of wisdom at 62, and I see it in my family structure with my children and grandchildren. They come to me for advice. I like that. I like being the matriarch. I like that they respect my brain at this time in my life. And wisdom and perspective you can only get them by living long enough. But if you're taking drugs that rob your brain, you rob yourself of ever even knowing what your capacity for wisdom and perspective would have been. And that, to me, is a true tragedy.
It's funny, too, Suzanne. I was talking with a few friends of mine and said, I believe we're going to have Suzanne Somers on our program, and it's going to be quite interesting, especially knowing the body of work that you've done. And one of the guys starts talking. It was funny what he said. He says, it's just that's usually what washed-up celebrities, they do. They write a book. And I said, oh, you think she's a washed-up celebrity, do you? And I started describing, we know that she was on the hit show Three's Company. She's done made-for-television movies, and even into the 90s you were doing television. And I believe it even into the 2000s. But I said, here was somebody that really got basically shanghaied in Three's Company. She redefined herself by going to Vegas and just becoming a showstopper, so she never quit. I said, and did you also know that she was at the cutting edge of infomercials when she was doing the Thigh Master, when infomercials were still a sort of a novel new way to do things, and became basically a star doing that? And as I just went on and on and on, and I said, do you see the value of taking away your thinking and to realize that anyone at any time can redefine themselves? And I said, and now she contributes in such a magnificent way when it comes to showing people how to eat the right foods, but that you can have fun eating it. It doesn't have to just all be vegetables and this and that. I've read through some of your cookbooks, and as a cook, I'm telling you, really, they're worth using. They really, really are, because the food in there and the recipes just are fantastic. But then, that you step up to the next stage, which is advocating for the right kind of health care for people to take that responsibility. And I said, I don't know about you, but I don't know too many washed-up celebrities that are doing these things. We're not hearing about them. And, it's truly been a pleasure to have you on the program, and I hope that you'll think about coming back, because we've been covering these kinds of things for the last 4 to 5 years consistently, and it's been amazing, some of the things we talked about, and truly having you come on to lend your celebrity. If people aren't going to listen to the experts, well, then listen to the celebrity who's talked to them.
I would love to come back. As you can tell, I have passion. It's a privilege to be able to talk about this. You and I could do a whole show on nanotechnology and non-drug
Oh, honey,
approaches.
We've crossed all of those gamuts, and I would love to.
And we could do a whole show on stem
about.
cell and the benefits of banking your stem cells. I would love to do that. I could bring on Dr. Robin Smith, who developed that technology. I mean, these are amazing people. Mm-hmm. So anytime you call me, I'll be there. Okay, well, I figure we'll get that direct information. We'll definitely make that happen. I know the producer has been trying to get you for the last 3.5 years, and she was just excited about this. Now that we found each other, let's do more.
Well, Suzanne, I got one question for you now, and just in closing now, you were doing handstands on Nightline.
Uh-huh.
Does this mean we expect a Zuma Beach 2?
Let's not go. That was then.
Yeah. No,
this is now.
Okay,
I already did that.
Well, Suzanne Somers, it's been a pleasure to have you again. Your book is Breakthrough: 8 Steps to Wellness, and is there a website people can go and find out a lot more information?
SuzanneSomers.com, and anybody who is interested in stem cells or nanotechnology, I have put links on my site which will take you directly to them. And my webmaster said, "You're crazy taking them out of your site." Honestly, I'm just excited about people getting the information. So there's and on SuzanneSomers.com, I also have, just to be commercial for 1 second, my proprietary sweetener called Summer Sweet, which is 100% natural, made from all natural ingredients. That is 1-to-1. For instance, if you are diabetic and you can't have sugar, and you're making a cake, and the cake calls for a cup of sugar, you would replace it with a cup of Summer Sweet. And it absolutely tastes delicious. It tastes like sugar, but it's not sugar. And I feel it took us 5 years to develop that product. So that's available.
Well, very good.
I appreciate the time. And please call me again.
Absolutely, will do. Suzanne Somers, thank you very much for joining us today.
Bye-bye.
And again, the book is Breakthrough by Suzanne Somers. It's 8 Steps to Wellness, and it has a lot of resources for you, so be sure to check that out. You've been listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and thank you for joining us today. Be sure to visit our website at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50 with a 50, and sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter. Again, thank you for joining us today, Beyond 50, and remember, live your day past halfway.